Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Funky Brain Podcast. My name is Dennis, and this is my Funky Brain. And today we have best-selling author of Forever Fit and Flexible, a keynote speaker and host of her own podcast called the FemiNinja Show. The main reason I asked Cheryl to come onto the show today, since my show is based on addiction recovery, but Cheryl's message is one of vitality at every stage of life. And it's based on her personal experience of recovering from several chronic pain syndromes and her professional experience as a physical therapist. So please share with us some of your story about overcoming your challenges to become the vibrant, successful woman we see here today.
Okay, well, first of all, if you would have told me that I would be doing what I'm doing now 30 years ago, if someone would have said, this is where you're going to be and this is what you're going to be doing, I probably would have laughed. And then I would have cried because I was in really, really bad shape. When I was in my mid-30s, I actually had a horrible chronic pain syndrome. What started out with just a little bit of mild discomfort and stiffness in my low back that I tried to deal with gentle stretching, hot packs, just spiraled out of control. And within just about 6 months, I was pretty much rendered incapacitated with horrible, sharp stabbing pains in my low back, radiating down one hip all the way down my leg and into my big toe, making it really difficult for me to even work. I was not a physical therapist at the time. I was a respiratory therapist. So I was very deep into the Western medicine model. I had been in it for a very long time. So of course I went to the doctor, what do I do? And like I said, in just a few short months, I was rendered from being a very healthy, vibrant, 30-something-year-old woman to a chronic pain patient. And I lived that life for 2.5 years. And I did every single thing that I was told. I was a good patient. I did all my exercises, all my stretching. I took all the medications that were prescribed to me, the anti-inflammatories, muscle relaxers, pain medicines. I stopped going to ballet and Pilates because I couldn't move. I couldn't even work. And I went to my massage therapist, all the doctors, the physical therapy. And instead of getting better, I kept getting worse. And after 2.5 years of living like that, one of my doctors told me, look, you are never going to be able to do your grocery shopping and your laundry all in the same day because you will end up being bedridden because the arthritis in your spine is so severe. You will just never be able to recover. And I looked at her and I said, you don't understand. I'm planning on going back to ballet class. And she laughed in my face and said, you don't understand. This is your new normal. You are a chronic pain patient. You will never have the life that you had before, the life that you wanted. Forget about PT school. She knew I was trying to get into physical therapy school. She said, even if you could do it, you're just too darn old. And forget about ballet. That's for kids. You're just too old. And then she told me to start applying for disability because I was going to need it. And I was 36.
And how old are you now?
I'll be 64 in September.
I know. So for those that are listening, that's the goal. You want to look like Cheryl. Or if you're a man, you want to be as healthy as Cheryl and have that vibrance and that youthfulness about you.
Thank you.
So that's so awesome.
So actually that day when that happened, I went home and I did hit rock bottom. It was like that doctor took away my hope. She crushed my spirit and she just demolished my dreams. And where do you go from that? And I can just remember just on the floor, I was just lying on the floor because that was the only place I could get some kind of comfort and support from the pain, besides, of course, the pain medication and the muscle relaxers. And all of a sudden, it just hit me. And it was like, this is not what I signed up for. This is not my life. I am not going to accept this. I am not a chronic pain patient. And I had been told that for 2.5 years. And just like your funky brain, which I love so much, our brain is always taking in information, right? And it's logging it just like a computer. And it doesn't judge whether the information it's receiving is right or wrong, or real or false reality. It just logs it in. So, and like a computer, you keep feeding it that same pathway, that same information. Eventually, what we hear And what our nervous system is taking in is what we eventually believe, even if it goes against our inherent belief system. So, and what we believe is what we become. And I just didn't believe that was going to be the rest of my life. You know, I didn't deserve that. My husband didn't deserve that. This is not what I signed up for. And I was going to fight it every way that I could. And inherently, I knew if I was doing this regime or whatever for 2.5 years, and I was not only not getting better, I was getting worse, this wasn't the right path to take. I fired all my doctors, I fired all my physical therapists, much to their chagrin, because they thought, oh my God, how could you live without us? Well, pretty well. And stopped taking all my medications. I stopped doing all the stupid stretches and exercises that the PTs gave me because they weren't helping me. And I can say that with all confidence because I'm a physical therapist now myself. And I just intuitively went back to how we learned how to move when we were children. You know, when we were little babies laying in the crib, nobody said, okay, this is how you're going to roll over. Oh, first we have to strengthen your arms. So we're going to give you these little baby barbells and strengthen. Now put this hand here, this hand, oh no, you're doing it wrong. And we learned through exploration, self-exploration, our movement, our environment with other people. And that's how we learned. And every single thing that we accomplished was a milestone and, you know, accolades and, oh, you're wonderful, you're fantastic, isn't this great? And we were celebrated with every little milestone that we accomplished. Then once we were fully upright and mobile and, you know, ambulatory, what were we told? Sit down and shut up, because now you're going to school and you're going to learn. Whereas prior to that, we learned in a very organic, visceral, somatic way through body and mind. You fall on your face, oh, that didn't work, let's try something different. So I just used that same kind of technique because I was lying on the floor and I thought, well, I'm not hurting now. If I start to move a certain way, I could feel the shooting pains. And so I just taught myself how to move all over again. And I knew enough about movement because I had been studying Pilates for years and I was a dancer. So I just broke down and disseminated all of the movement patterns and just went back to the very basics and started from scratch. And it was not easy. It was a long process. And in about 9 months, I was pain-free, very stiff and uncomfortable, but and heavy, but pain-free. The only other thing I added was acupuncture. Wow. And it was like, nobody else is touching me, no more meds, no more MDs, you know, it just wasn't working. And between the acupuncture and my own self-exploration, I got to the point where I could start going back to ballet class. And I told my teachers, ignore me. I'm going into the corner by myself. And they're like, oh yeah, whatever you need. We don't want to touch you. So I would just do what I could, very small, very gentle. And 10 minutes later, I was done. And I walked out of class saying, thank you very much. And, you know, the looks of pity that would follow me. And it's like, don't pity me. This is just quite an accomplishment. This is a victory. Small steps. So I would have to say the two things that really helped me was convincing myself I was not a chronic pain patient. So what we tell ourselves just has so much of an impact on our physical, mental, emotional, you know, every single thing that we do. So that was the first step. The second step was taking the responsibility and taking the chance to say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to figure it out. When I fall on my face, I'll lay there on the floor and then I'll get back up and try again. There's a saying, you know, fall 7 times, get up 8. So
what was it inside of you that you think other people are lacking? That those other people that stay in their addictions or get used to the pain pills or just keep going to the therapy, what do you think that they're dealing with that you didn't have to, that you were able to just say, I'm not going to be the chronic pain patient?
Well, I was blessed with a sense of incomparable stubbornness. I mean, when they were handing out stubbornness, I went back in line a couple of times. So I'm incredibly stubborn. I do not like people to tell me what I'm going to do or what I can and cannot do. And that just kind of triggers a reaction of, oh yeah, you want to bet? And just like going back to the brain, and when people are being told over and over, you're a chronic pain patient, or you have this addiction, you'll never recover, but we will take care of you. And I think that, you know, it's not through any fault of the person going through it, but it's just that they keep hearing it and hearing it, not only maybe from the professionals that they're working with, maybe from family, from friends, from society, from, you know, the television commercials and everything, the media, that this is what you are. And it's just like they put that label on me as a chronic pain patient. And I think that happens then with people in addiction. They put that label on, you are an addict and you're going to be one for the rest of your life. And I understand that, but it's like, okay, now I'm in addiction. And with the right mindset, the right help, the right coach, then you never have to go back again. And it's like, that was the time that I was a chronic pain patient. I'm not now. That was the time I was in addiction, but I'm not now. And I don't have to go back there. I will admit that every now and again, it's like if I get a twinge somewhere, if I yank my shoulder somehow, or if I get a little pain, it's like, and I start to go back, oh my gosh, what if? And it's like, stop it. And it could be the same thing if, you know, an alcoholic, you know, either takes that drink or it doesn't mean you're going back to where you were. I'm not an expert on addiction. I don't know. But it's just the brain and the neuroplasticity, the ability, the flexibility, and the malleability of our brains and our nervous system to be able to change and find a new way.
Yeah, and we do change. And that's really important to note that, because a lot of people get stuck in the fact that you cannot change. Mm-hmm. And that's absolutely false. But you said something else that was important, is that you need the right coach, the right counselor, the right accountability partner. Because there are those very few people that do not need an accountability partner.
Right.
That just wake up every day, they roll out of bed, they jump up in the air and look at the sunshine and just say, I'm going to conquer today all on my own. And there are some people that can do that, and they have the direction, the drive, the know-how to get there. And then most of the rest of us don't. And it depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to eat lunch today, you don't need anybody to coach you to that. But if your goal is to change your subconscious mind, which drives over 80% of our actions, then you need to have somebody to help get you there, to help give you the steps and actions to take to get there. And it takes time, effort, and commitment. But it sounds to me like you were one of those rare people. Your book there, I can see in the background, that's the Forever Fit and Flexible. So yep. You dive into a lot of what we're talking about here in that book?
Yeah, I did. I talk a lot about mindset. I talk a lot about attitude, because I will be the first one to admit I was probably the most negative person you have ever met. I was very down on myself. I remember the day that I realized I was not fat, ugly, and stupid. And I was 50 years old, and I know exactly when it happened. It just like hit me like a ton of bricks. And I looked at, and I was like, what have you been telling yourself? Because a lot of my hang-ups were not only from things I heard from other people that I embraced. They must be right about, you know, I'm not really that smart. I can't do a lot of things. And then all of a sudden it was one day, wait a minute. And then I realized how I was buying into that negative self-talk, and that it wasn't doing me any good. And I looked in the mirror. I literally was looking in a mirror, and it was like I was meeting myself for the first time. And then I went back and thought about everything that I had accomplished, you know, as an adult, you know, from the time I graduated college, left home at 21, up to that point. And it was like, wow, you're pretty amazing. And I have to admit, yeah, I mean, I never really had a coach, but I've had many mentors who are more physical coaches. And the way that I would learn the physicality from them always definitely had the mind-body connection. And that, I think, even at the beginning, before I started, before my first chronic pain syndrome, I was doing Pilates. So I was learning that mind-body connection right away. And that, I think, is what helped me more than anything else. That and my incomparable stubbornness, and the fact that I don't like people lecturing me and telling me what to do. Don't do that. And that's when I had my own physical therapy practice, I didn't do that to my clients either. It was like, I will never talk down to you. I will never lecture you. It's like, we're going to figure this out together.
Yeah, that's great. And I love your enthusiasm for life. And that book talks a lot, like that's you on the cover back behind you, isn't it?
That's me.
Yeah. And that's amazing stuff. I mean, like, to go from being diagnosed as a chronic pain patient.
Well, yeah, chronic pain patient, but that was my first experience as a chronic pain patient. I had something else that was equally as horrible, maybe even worse, in my mid 40s, and that one was a tough one to recover from. But once
And
again,
what was that?
oh boy. Well, I basically I was assaulted when I was 44 years old. I walked into a physician's office just for a routine, checkup. A healthy, vibrant 44-year-old woman. I was so excited because I had finally, gotten myself into really good physical shape. I was, doing great. I graduated physical therapy school just 3 months before my 40th birthday. So I was, had started my own practice and everything was going great. So I walked in there, and when I walked out, I was a statistic. And interestingly enough, boy, was that an education, because I know why women do not report assault. Because I did right away. Because, again, my default is to get royally ticked off. I was furious, as well as shocked and horrified. But when I tried to get help and I tried to report it, the way I was treated by the other professionals and even my very best and dearest friend was, that can't happen. Something else happened, in your life. You were abused as a child. You need to look into your background. You need to go home and do some deep soul searching. And, after about a month or two of trying to get help, finally it was like, okay, I just shoved it deep down, inside of me and just put a smile on my face and pretended everything was fine. And that kind of worked, not well, but it kind of worked for about a year and a half until I was again re-triggered so badly that, I was pretty much close to, what is a nervous breakdown? I don't know, but I think I might have had one. Anyhow, that brings me to the next part of my healing process, which part of it is right behind me with my weapons. That is when I discovered martial arts. It was after that. And interestingly enough, my teacher, my sensei, was my acupuncturist before he became my teacher. I met him probably, it was about 4 months after the incident. And, I never told him about it, didn't tell anybody else, because you learn to shut up and deal with it yourself. And the first time he put needles in my legs, he got a faraway look on his face and he said, with your legs and my coaching, I could teach you how to kill with these things. And I thought, who thinks this way, let alone says it out loud? And I'm literally pinned to the table going, I think this guy is nuts. Well, about a year later, and he kept trying to get me to train with him. His martial arts school, his dojo was right next to his clinic. And about a year and a half later was when he found out what had happened to me, my story. And then his campaign to get me on the mat went into high gear. And I said, I don't see how rolling around on the floor with a bunch of sweaty men is going to help me. That's just stupid. And finally, after 3 years, he broke me. And I said, okay, I capitulated. And I said, I will take a few classes just to see if it'll help, although I knew it wouldn't, and to prove to you how much I'm going to hate it, and then I'll quit. And 10 years later, I became his first female black belt at the age of 57.
It's such a great story, and I think it's so powerful for everybody to hear that, because it's your perspective on things, and hearing that you can become a black belt at 57 years old, that's an inspiring story. In 20 years from now, or 50 or 100 years from now, and somebody hears the name Cheryl Ilov, how do you want them to remember you by?
As the most incredibly stubborn person that ever walked the face of the earth. And I want them to be inspired by my stories. I love stories. And that's why I do my podcast, is because I get to learn other people's stories, because I think that we can get really inspired by each other. And it's, sometimes you feel so alone and so stuck. Like, I know there were a lot of times I felt like I had nobody to rely on. And that's really not true, because there's a lot of other people who have similar stories, who've gone through things, that if we can share our stories, then we can support each other, we can love each other, build more of a community, no matter what else is going on. We're all people, we're all human. We just want to be loved, we want to be healthy, we want to be vibrant. We want to live our lives the way that we choose to. So that's why stories, I think, are so important.
They are, and there's always somebody to connect to. If you're really having a hard time, there are ways to find people. Like the biggest one, Google.
Yeah.
The average person spends 23 hours and 50 minutes within arm's reach of their phone. Whatever you're going through, the solution is right at your fingertips. If you're struggling with an addiction or alcoholism of any kind, contact me. I work with a lot of men. If you're a woman and you would rather work with a woman, I don't think Cheryl specializes in addiction recovery, but at the same time, if you're looking for counseling, direction, somebody who's been through the ringer, who's been through really tough times and has persevered on top, give Cheryl a call. And so if somebody wanted to contact you, email you, call you, website, buy your book, how would they do those things?
Go to www.CherylIlov.com. There is no E at the end of I love. And you can also go to the FemiNinjaProject.com, which is the podcast. And there's some blogs and some tips and stuff, fit tips on that. You can just email me directly, info@CherylIlov.com. I would love to talk to you. I would love to hear your story. If you're struggling with even simple things like, aches and pains or not being able to do the things that you want to do, that you feel you should, everybody, I believe, has the capacity to live a healthy, vibrant life and should be able to do the things they want to do and love to do with strength, grace, and confidence at every single stage of life. And don't ever let anybody tell you you're too old to do anything.
Cheryl, thank you so much. Do you have any closing arguments?
Closing arguments. I just want to say one thing that, it's so important to be positive, to stay positive and active and giving yourself those positive messages. But it's also okay to have a bad day and just to kind of sink down into it and say, okay, this is, I'm feeling sorry for myself. Stuck here at home or whatever. That's okay. But then just figure out how you can turn it around. Walking outside, just getting outside into the sun, you're putting your feet in the grass, watching your dog play or anything, just listening to the birds. There are so many things that can actually help lift you up so you're not stuck in that place of sadness or helplessness, because you don't have to be. There's so much positive energy and joy in the world that we need to keep spreading.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Cheryl, and thanks for being here on the Funky Brain Podcast. So thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching the Funky Brain Podcast today. We'll tune back again pretty soon. Have a great day today. So you can't think your way into a new way of acting. You have to act your way into a new way of thinking and being. Hi, I'm Dennis Berry, best-selling author, speaker, and life coach for addiction recovery. So many people are stuck in their addiction, whether it's like drugs or alcohol or food or shopping or sex or money, and they think they can just stop or try to figure it out on their own, but they don't change anything in their lives. Nothing changes if nothing changes. In order for change to happen, you have to change something. My clients will be like, oh, I'll stop tomorrow, or if this happens, then I stop, or someday I'll just give it up. And then they just sit around and think, and hope for different or better results, but it doesn't happen. You have to take action. Action most people aren't willing to take. People don't become willing until they're in enough pain, me included. And unfortunately, they wait, and time passes by. Even if you are willing, you don't even know where to begin. And that's where I come in. In my best-selling book, Funky Wisdom, A Practical Guide to Life, I talk about the how approach. How do I get sober? How do I stop doing drugs? How do I become healthier? How do I have more successful relationships? How do I become more financially successful? And the answer is how. Honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. I have to honestly admit that there's a problem. I have to honestly admit that things aren't going well and there needs to be changes. And then once I do that, the door opens and I become open to seeing new ways of living. And then I become willing to make those changes. You can't solve a problem with the same mind that created it. That's why I'm here to help. And, I've been working with clients for over 15 years and helping them get clean and sober and change their lives and achieve inner peace and success. If you or somebody you love is struggling and doesn't know where to begin and how to make those changes to get to where they need to be, give me a call. Not tomorrow or in a week from now when you're hungover and your life is falling apart. Call now. Start making that change today, and you'll be glad that you did. I'm sending you love and good vibes. Have a great day today.